I have a challenge for you if you play the current edition of D&D. I'm going to describe a scenario to you, and before you keep watching this video, comment down below with what the rules as written way to handle it is without referencing your rulebook. Okay, the players have arrived at a remote town after dark, and the town guards aren't letting anybody in. So the party bard walks up and tries to convince the sentries to let the party come in and stay at the inn that night. How is this resolved, rules as written? Go ahead and pause here if you like and fill that in below before continuing. Okay, pencils down, class, and we can now check your work. My name is Peter, and I'm the creator and lead designer of Tales from Elsewhere. And in this week's video, I want to talk to you all about rules verbosity, about when we write rules for our tabletop role-playing games, is the juice worth the squeeze we're forcing the players to read through before they get to the answer they need? All right, without further ado, let's check your work against what's actually written in the 2024 Player's Handbook. Now, before I read what's on this page, remember, the rules are there to teach people how to play the game. If you're like me and been playing D&D for a long time, you don't even need a lot of these rules to actually DM a game, right? We know how to go with the flow, we know how to call for ability checks, we don't really need these rules. But if somebody's new to the hobby and doesn't watch a weird YouTuber like me sitting in their office telling you how to play role-playing games, then they have to rely on the rules as written to answer questions that come up at the table. So keep that in mind. Put on the hat of the new player. So let's read the influence action. With the influence action, you urge a monster to do something. Describe or roleplay how you're communicating with the monster. Are you trying to deceive, intimidate, amuse, or gently persuade? The DM then determines whether the monster feels willing, unwilling, or hesitant due to your interaction. This determination establishes whether an ability check is necessary as explained below. Willing. If your urging aligns with the monster's desires, no ability check is necessary. The monster fulfills your request in a way it prefers. Unwilling. If your urging is repugnant to the monster or counter to its alignment, no ability check is necessary, it doesn't comply. Hesitant. If you urge the monster to do something that it is hesitant to do, you must make an ability check, which is affected by the monster's attitude, indifferent, friendly, or hostile, each of which is defined in this glossary. The influence check table suggests which ability check to make based on how you're interacting with the monster. The DM chooses the check, which has a default DC equal to 15 or the monster's intelligence score, whichever is higher. On a successful check, the monster does as urged. On a failed check, you must wait 24 hours or a duration set by the DM before urging it in the same way again. And then it has a series of ability checks and interaction table here to define what you need to read. But we need to now check the attitude. Indifferent says, an indifferent creature has no desire to help or hinder you. Indifferent is the default attitude of a monster. See also influence, which we just read. Okay, what about hostile? A hostile creature views you unfavorably. You have disadvantage on an ability check to influence a hostile creature. See also influence. Well, we gotta flip the page to go find friendly. Here we go. A friendly creature views you favorably. You have advantage on an ability check to influence a friendly creature. See also influence. The totality of all of that was about 300 words. So be truthful. Did you remember all of those little details about the influence action in your answer in the comments? My guess is you probably missed something because it's 300 words and it's spread out actually across multiple pages and different subheaders. And that's probably not even how you, as a DM, would run convincing a character in your sessions, right? Now, if you wanted to quickly find out information about using the influence action, it is buried in huge blocks of text. It's something like 200 words before you actually find out what the standard DC is for this check. It's buried way down, which is 15 or the intelligence score. What ability you're supposed to use in which circumstance and which skill maybe to use in relation to that is also at the bottom in the table after all of the text. And the attitudes and their effect on the ability check are in separate sections, some of which are on the same page, some's on a facing page, and one you have to flip to get to. This is the definition of verbose and inefficient. And now let's not get lost in the weeds though. This isn't about how good of a rule or a structure the influence action is for D&D 2024. That'd be a separate analysis that I've talked about in actually other videos on here. we're looking at how much text is needed to articulate what actually is a very brief moment at the table. Really, it takes only a matter of seconds for a player to say, I'm going to try to lie my way in, and the DM to say, okay, give me a deception check, and you'll say maybe if DC 15 sounds good, and the player rolls, and if they succeed, you move on. It's a lot of words to actually resolve something that takes mere moments. So let me read you an alternative to the influence action, and you let me know if you think this was a little bit more efficient and easy to follow. With the influence action, you can urge a creature to do something they're hesitant to do if it would not be against their nature or utterly repugnant for them to do so. Make a relevant ability check based on how you're trying to convince them: deception for lies, persuasion to sweet talk, or maybe animal handling to coax a monster or beast. Against a DC of 15 or their intelligence score, whichever is higher. If the creature is hostile, you roll with a disadvantage, and if they are friendly, you roll with advantage. If you succeed, the creature attempts to do what you urge. If you fail, you cannot try again for 24 hours or a duration set by the DM. That is literally a third of the words used than the one in the player's handbook. And something to know about me is I actually do like natural language rules. I like when it's a sentence you can read and communicate because I feel like it rolls off the tongue better and it's a little easier for me to internalize. But I also think that there's a limit to how much language you should be using when trying to describe something that is otherwise quite simple. The influence action is an example of that extreme verbosity and inefficiency as a tool for teaching the game and as a reference when you're actually running it. We as designers have to be very careful about how much we wax on and philosophically as we're writing these rules, because at the end of the day, they need to facilitate an experience at the table. And now remember, this isn't about whether or not the influence action is a good rule or that's how you'd run it at your table. It's about how those rules are presented to the reader. Rules as written is not something you can just ignore just because you're not using that rule when you play. We can still assess that rule as designers to learn if we should repeat that same mistake, if we can adjust how we write our rules when we're making our own games. And I actually personally struggle with this a lot when I'm writing my rules. I come from a background in philosophy where you want to get to the point, but you also want to flex your intellectual might by expounding on a subject and considering all these different examples and counterexamples and what ifs. But when you're writing a rule book, every word matters because you need people to get it quickly and efficiently and not waste their time by burying relevant information deep within hundreds of words of prose. And honestly, this makes me want to crack open the manuscript for my own rulebook that I'm working on because I have a feeling that I'm too verbose as well, and I should really live up to my own hype and follow my own directions, right? And speaking of my manuscript, if you're still interested in picking up a copy of my tabletop role-playing game, which will be releasing next year, we're still accepting late pledges for a little while longer for both the physical edition and the PDF. If you buy in at any tier, you actually get access to the beta manuscript that'll be released at the end of this year, if you're watching it in 2025. It'll be the whole content-complete version of the game without any art or editing or layouts or anything like that, to hold folks over while all of our artists fill the rulebook with something like 300 pieces of awesome horror art. It's going to be incredible. So we'll put a link down to that below if you're interested in supporting us in that way. If not, it's all good. A like or a subscribe would do us a big solid. And we hope to see you back here next week on Tales from Elsewhere.